Hey guys, welcome to the podcast, My Brother's Ballot. So I was watching Abby Phillips' Newsnight, one of my favorite shows on CNN, probably my only show that I enjoy on CNN. Big fan of Abby Phillips. I met her maybe this had to be right before the pandemic. I used to live in New York, currently live in Atlanta. So as you know, she has some of the craziest panels on her show, especially with Scott Jennings being there. And of course, this clip is with Scott Jennings. So let's get into this clip. They are basically talking about the government, Trump's administration, essentially wanting to withhold federal funding from Harvard. Let's get into it.
Trump administration to the Ivy League making a stand. Breaking tonight, the administration is freezing a $2.2 billion worth of grants and $60 million in contracts at Harvard University. Now, that happened just hours after Harvard said it would not comply with the Trump administration's threats that would rewire how and what the school teaches. Harvard's president, Alan Garber, writing, quote, "The university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. No government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue." Harvard is the first elite school to tell the administration no when confronted with federal demands. This is important. This is sort of like the moment that I think everybody was waiting for when it came to media lawsuits like Disney and
Now, Abby is 100% correct. We were all waiting, especially if you were kept abreast of everything that was going on, because we know when Trump first got into office, it felt like all these huge media organizations were essentially capitulating to him because they were afraid that with Trump being in office, he would use the full power of the government, his bully pulpit, to essentially keep these companies within litigation. We saw, which she just mentioned, Disney, who owns ABC, settled out of court based off of some comments that Stephanopoulos had essentially said that if you really read into it, he actually did not accuse Trump of anything, but Disney still decided to settle. So it is pretty cool and great to see an institution such as Harvard standing up and not capitulating to the bullies in the office. And also, whatever happens to free speech, if you don't teach what we want you to teach, you're not getting my funding. That doesn't seem very right-wing or conservative, in my opinion.
The law firm lawsuits, Harvard is saying no, and I think it will have a ripple effect. Let me just read to you a little bit more about what the Trump administration demanded. They want to eliminate DEI programs, institute mask bans, institute merit-based hiring and admission reforms, reduce the power of students and faculty administrators. Now, keep that in mind. They also want to do this. Every department or field found to have lack of viewpoint diversity must be reformed by hiring a critical mass of new faculty within that department or field who will provide viewpoint diversity. Every teaching unit found to have.
So, not sure if you guys picked up on that. They want to get rid of DEI initiatives, but they also, in the same breath, want to fill departments that are lacking diverse viewpoints with people that have a particular type of ideology, which we all know would be conservative or right-leaning opinions. So it's fine to have diversity in that way, but not diversity in the way that we traditionally think of DEI.
Lack of viewpoint diversity must be reformed by admitting a critical mass of students who will provide viewpoint diversity. So which is it? Is it merit or is it quotas for particular viewpoints that this administration wants?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is my home institution, and I can say, there's been a lot of tension on campus just waiting for this to happen, and I can only speak for myself and, a few of my colleagues, but there's, I think, a little bit of relief that it's now happened, that Harvard has taken this stand. These demands are very different from what was put to Columbia. Those were pretty outstanding as well, but these are much more so, as you just read. But this is out of Viktor Orban's playbook of demolishing higher education. This is out of Chris Rufo's dreams of and Mark Andreessen's dreams of deconstructing higher education. And these demands, there's no point in being Harvard if you can't be Harvard, if you can't actually set your standards of academic excellence, and you have some, bureaucrat looking over all of your decisions and making them miserable.
Why are they trying to tell private universities what to teach?
Well, they're actually trying to say this in regards to federal funding. So I think the big story out of this. Obviously, I understand your point of view, and I said this at the beginning. You have a $53 billion endowment. I understand how it goes in regards to how money is distributed, but you're going to get $9 billion cut from your budget. That's federal funding that comes from the federal government at the discretion of the federal government. So they have the ability to do it. And
So I like to deal in extremes. Forgive me. Just because someone has the ability to do it, just because it could be deemed legal, doesn't mean that it should be done. For instance, this is my extreme. Slavery was legal. Does that mean at that time it should have happened? That we should have allowed that? Just because it's legal or someone is allowed to do it, it does not mean that it's proper to do so.
my question is, because of this, which is what happened during the protest last time, were what big funders, the big board members, former students that are now the billionaires giving or the millionaires giving, how much are they going to pull their funding, or if not?
So, and I feel like doesn't that skirt the question that I actually asked, which is we understand what the stick is, which is the money, but why are they using that as leverage or as a threat to try to control what is being taught? I think that's the fundamental question.
They are using it. They're using the pretext of fighting anti-Semitism on campus, and based on what they see as past events that did take place at Harvard last academic year. That is the pretext for basically neutralizing the university. And the fact is, look, generally conservatives are against big government meddling in the day-to-day aspects of people's lives. This affects so many people beyond the Harvard community because...
Exactly. This goes against at least what I thought conservatism was he makes so much sense there simply because in one side of the Trump administration, we have Doge, too much government bureaucracy, too much waste, too much fraud. Government has gotten too big. They are overreaching into every little man, every little person, every citizen in America. Government is on their back, breathing down their neck. But then the same administration will then choose to essentially use their full weight and power to force a private institution to teach what they want to teach their students. And if they don't do it, you will lose federal funding. That's wild.
Money from some of these funds that the federal government gives Harvard, it is used in hospitals, research facilities, labs. These are things that do affect people who are not necessarily have a direct affiliation with the community. So the administration is using this pretext to try, in my view, to stifle dissent and to meddle in hiring, admissions, leadership, and governance of a private university.
Again, no, this isn't new, right? I mean,
Right.
We've seen this in Orban. This is the authoritarian playbook. You go after the press, you go after the legal establishment, you go after higher education. I do want to just engage on this for a second. First, this isn't discretionary, right? These are contracts, these are grants for medical research and so on. And so it's not actually within their discretion. And second, of the endowment, most of it is already contractually assigned to specific purposes. So Harvard can't, it's not a savings account. They can't just kind of dip
70%
in and withdraw.
Isn't it the discretion of the federal government, the money that comes
No,
from
they've signed a contract, and they have constitutional
But it's new money they're
restrictions
taking
on.
back.
No, I mean the freeze is existing
you
money.
can
So the
freeze
threat
it,
of the
too.
future
Yeah,
money.
yeah.
So and there are constitutional restrictions when you can't condition the government funding on viewpoint discrimination. That's a First Amendment violation. And so I think Harvard, because they do have somewhat deep pockets, can play a little bit the long game. They are going to win in court. MIT has also just joined the lawsuit. There's evidence that Princeton is likely to join the lawsuit.
But that's why it matters that a big institution like Harvard stepped up, because they can afford it, right? They have the money to afford it. But let's say the thing that I think you're trying to get to. I mean, this has actually been a dream of the right wing since going back to the 70s, frankly, going back to, Nixon was, complaining about the Vietnam War protesters. So this has been...
She's 100% correct, because there has been a concerted effort, especially since October 7th, with all of the protests that we saw on TV, the right wing and a lot of centrist Democrats were conflating those protests on the campus where people were protesting in defense of the innocent Palestinians, the citizens of Palestine, that had nothing to do with October 7th. Their brutal and devastation of their homeland, that was conflated with anti-Semitism. Anti-Zionism was conflated with anti-Semitism. The right wing ran with that like no one's business. That is their goal, which is super gaggy, because if you think about it, there's a lot of prominent anti-Semites on the right, but a lot of them will always have those little yellow ribbons on there for the hostages. I always say this: whoever's the darkest, that is who the far right wing, that is who the right wing will be against.
In the playbook for a very long time. In this instance, they're doing it because they're they believe that too many of the conversations about culture have moved too far to the left. Now, as someone who is the daughter of, people who grew up in the segregated South, who were married in New York City when it was illegal in their home states, I would say it's forward, not left, that we actually believe Black people should have the right to vote, women should be able to control their own money, and that we are evolving constantly in our core values of this country, the rights and freedoms.
Okay, I don't believe in violence. Okay. In certain instances, I believe in defending yourself. But Scott just has a face that you just want to... Do you see how he gets upset that she essentially says, I believe that Black people should be able to vote, that women should be able to vote? And he's just like, oh my God. Oh. He's the worst. I still cannot believe CNN has him on the payroll.
Of individuals, but they have a different ideological view.
I guess the thing is, let's take Harvard out of it. Let's make it Liberty University. Let's make it some other institution that is more conservatively, and it doesn't really matter. The question is, should the government use the power of the purse to strangle institutions until they do what they want them to do, telling them, oh, you need to admit these students, you need to hire these people, you need to teach these courses, or get rid of that department or add this department? I imagine you wouldn't want that either.
I think that this is all about anti-Semitism. I mean, I believe that what's happened on these campuses in the Ivy League and in other places, mostly private institutions, has been an abomination. And someone has to stand up for these.
This is the same man that could not admit that Elon did a Hitler salute, but he's worried about Jewish students, much of whom were a part of the protest. Is he serious? He is. I just answered my own question.
These Jewish
it's not
kids.
Going to be the rabbi at the table.
Someone stands up. Someone has to stand. Someone has to stand up.
It's not going to be my friends in Jewish studies who had their grants
until Donald Trump came along in his administration and decided to connect federal funds to stamping out the scourge of anti-Semitism on these campuses.
Like Nick Fuentes.
Nobody.
Like the Sikh Heil
Nobody was willing to
salutes.
stand up for him.
Like
and
standing up for Alliance
And I
for
think the American
Deutschland.
people don't want a private university with a $53 billion
Yo, this visiting professor, I apologize for not having your name, but he is eating Scott up, and Scott is trying to power through his statement. But the professor is 100% correct. Nick Fuentes, if I'm not mistaken, did Donald Trump have dinner with Nick Fuentes? Let me double check. Yes, I just Googled it. So I am not mistaken. Donald Trump had dinner with Kanye West and Nick Fuentes at Mar-a-Lago. Again, as I just previously mentioned, the biggest benefactor of Donald Trump's campaign, Elon Musk, did a Hitler salute. And this man, Scott Jennings, who is always cozying up to his daddy Trump, is trying to stand up for anti-Semitism? Good night.
endowment to get $1 while a Jewish kid is being discriminated against on campus.
I think, first of all, let me hold on. Let me just
But
say.
a complete joke.
Why is it
You
a
guys
joke?
are nowhere. You have white supremacists in your party and in your administration. Oh, Nick Fuentes. Oh, whatever. It's
He's
just
not
a
in our
dinner.
administration.
Oh, Alliance for Deutschland. Oh, it's not really a Sikh Heil salute. Go to CPAC.
You sound
There's anti-Semitic
unhinged.
conspiracy
You sound
theories
crazy.
all over the place.
And that is what they do. He is speaking, the professor is speaking nothing but facts. And then Scott will say, you're unhinged. you sound crazy. So facts sound crazy. I guess that's how it works.
Do you not want these college campuses to do better? Do you condone what is happening?
That's what Harvard agreed to do. They already agreed.
I think the issue is not whether these universities should address anti-Semitism. The question is, how is the government using government power to do it? That there is a complete distinction between the university addressing its own problems and the government forcing them to do it in a particular way.
The entanglement comes when you take federal money. If Harvard wants to give up the federal money, you can do all the anti-Semitism I guess you want at Harvard or any other school, but that's not the issue. That's not the issue.
This was really about fighting anti-Semitism. What they would have started with, just like with Doge, is let's look at what they have done over the course of the last year and then go to Harvard and say, not enough, or that was good, we want you to do that. Instead, it's all performative. This is all about Trump being seen as this tough guy standing up, again, but they're also using anti-Semitism as a way to then also push a conservative ideological agenda and use research dollars, which, by the way, we all benefit from the medical and technical research that goes on.
I think that this is,
doesn't have that
it is a good point that the research, hold on a second.
The
It is a very good point that the dollars that we're talking about, I think it can sound like it's charity, but what is happening is that these universities produce a lion's share of the scientific research, of the medical research, of all kinds of different research that we then benefit from.
So they actually make a really great point here, because it's not like it's charity that Harvard needs this money from the government. The government allocates this money to Harvard because they are doing a lot of great medical research. Just 5 of them I could give you right now that Harvard has been responsible for. They were responsible for immune checkpoint inhibitors, cancer immunotherapy, essentially. Harvard researchers have helped identify key genetic markers and pathways associated with Alzheimer's disease, including their work with APOE genes and microglial cell function, aiding early detection and targeted therapies. That is the type of work that Harvard is doing. And this government wants to play bully with those funds that could help us, that helps all of us, essentially. Guys, that's all I got for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this video and this commentary. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I hope you will enjoy this ride that I'm about to take you guys on and all that great jazz. So yeah, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I'm your boy, Aaron. Thank you for coming to My Brother's Ballot. Peace.